half of the world at this point considers themselves gamers. 4 billion people play video games on a regular basis. And as the person who claims the invention of blockchain gaming, I have had a very big issue with what we've seen in Web3 gaming today. Digital rights management is definitely on the forefront of what the blockchain can provide, right? Ownership of UGC content, right? That's a big thing. We're in a world where content matters, right? The currency of a player is content. And the more content you have, the more likely you are to retain them. And you look at like Netflix or what TikTok does, they're designed to make you keep going as long as they can keep you there. And that way they can monetize you over and over again while you're there. So their value is not so much that you're a user, their value is how long they can keep you in the act. Video games do this by far better than anybody else.
Welcome to another episode of the Untangling Web3 podcast. Today, we're delighted to be joined by Timothy Tello. Timothy is a blockchain evangelist and gaming expert whose work includes pioneering the world's first SEC-approved blockchain token and co-authoring patents on blockchain and gaming. As the CEO of Ethics, Tim is driving the revolution of monetization for the gaming industry by redefining tools and processes utilizing blockchain technologies. Welcome to the show, Tim.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Hey, Tim, how you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
Yeah, not too bad, thanks. Not too bad. Glad to finally get you on the show. We've been looking forward to this one a while. And before we get on to all the Web3 gaming stuff, can you just tell us a bit about you and maybe your career background, how your early career was in the Web2 gaming world before all this kind of came around?
Yeah, so funny how I got into video games. My wife is an influencer, social media marketing person, Webby Award winner, but she wanted to move from Texas or from Los Angeles. And at the time, I was in like oil consulting as an upstream process expert. So nothing to do with video games, nothing to do with blockchain at all. And so I didn't really know what I was going to do in the video game world, or what I was going to do in LA, to be honest with you. I had no idea. As a salesperson, I started applying to sales jobs. And got very fortunate to be hired by the former VP of Warner Brothers, who had just broke off and started his own entrepreneurial journey, if you will. And so I started working with him, and him and I did a bunch of things. And the model that you find within oil is the roll-up model, right? You have one company owning a bunch of different companies. But for some reason, he owned a localization company, he had a development studio, he had a publishing company. None of it really made sense to me in my mind. So I helped him reorganize, helped him with roll-ups, and really became like his right hand. In doing so, it gave me the ability to meet basically every executive in video games. I was on a first name basis with everybody, going to meet with people like Frank Gabot, the CEO of Zynga, and guys like John Riccatello, who at the time was the CEO of EA, then was the CEO of Unity. And so I got to really commingle with the top executives of the industry. And gaming is very, very small. It's a very insular industry. Maybe like 200-300 people actually run all of gaming from an executive level. And so you kind of get to know everybody. So I get on a first name basis. I help him with this thing. I get a little bit of cash from that. And I decided, this is pretty easy. I could do my own entrepreneurial thing. I met these guys and we started a language learning game, the first of its kind. We did pretty well. Had a couple $1 million worth of sales on Steam. Built another game. That game went on to win a bunch of awards, and we focused on Xbox's Game Pass, like early on in Game Passes. So we were number one game on ID at Xbox, was indie developer at Xbox 2 years in a row, and then went on to do something with influencers because I really understood marketing was very expensive. So before Justin really created Twitch, me and my friend Chris Cross, who in my opinion is like one of the most prolific developers of all time, created Medal of Honor, was head of Nexon, DreamWorks, THQ, etc. Him and I decided to build a studio together. So we built a company called Sugar Glazed, and it was the first ever influencer gaming company. And what we did was, with marketing costing so much money, we were like, what if we just put an influencer in the game? So that's what kind of led into me moving into the Web3 world. I was at E3 and I was hanging out with some friends, and Clippy B, if you know who that is, he's the creator of Unreal. So he's like this prodigy. He created Unreal when he was 13. His wife is also an influencer. My wife's an influencer. and we were like hanging out. Our wives were talking, going back and forth. At the time, they were introducing an A3 game called Gunslingers. Gunslingers evolved into Fortnite and became Fortnite. And he was telling me how, and you got to understand where we were in the industry. This is like 2015, 2016. Free-to-play gaming was not very well liked in the industry. People did not want to give away their games for free at all.
Why was that? Is it just they couldn't understand the revenue models early on, or what was the reluctance to that, do you think, from a developer perspective?
You got to understand the gaming industry is a very monkey see, monkey do industry. And when one person does well, they'll all do it. But until they do well, it's all skepticism.
Do you think they're quite risk averse as an industry, maybe, or
extremely risk averse? I would say you don't leave the golden goose to touch the dragon. The dragon, it's hiding the massive amount of loot behind it, but you already have a golden goose, so you can't risk the golden goose to touch the dragon. And so that's how the nature of video games are, and that's why we're where we're at in Web3, right? When those people go and they touch the dragon and they do very well and have a lot of success, that's when other people, that's what drives adoption. And so free to play was this thing where, why would I give it away for free? I spent millions of dollars to make it. There was, if you go back and look at the news back then, there's people talking about how Apple's going to have to cancel free to play and make it and block it from the Apple App Store. It's a problem. And like Web3, it took shape because Southeast Asia latched onto it, and it really drove the growth of the free to play game. Going back to my conversation with Cliff, he was explaining to me how Fortnite would be the first free to play game on console. And I was like, you can't do that. That doesn't make sense.
I was going to ask you, what was your opinion on that when he told you that initially?
I immediately was like, you can't do that. We're going from mobile games that are like a couple $1 million to make at most, right? You can make a solid mobile game for like $200,000-$300,000. But a console game at that time was probably $30 to $100 million. Now we have games like Call of Duty are more than movies, right? $300 million to make Call of Duty.
Yeah, especially in that kind of AAA category, the budgets have just kind of blown up, haven't they, in the last kind of...
They're obscene what they cost, but it's because of like how much you have to build now. Because here you got to understand like human psychology, right? Once players realize that console games could be free, all games had to be free. And I understood that the moment he told me. I was like, look, you can't do that. That's not possible. You can't give away something for free that costs you that much money. If it tanks, it's going to be bad. It's going to be really bad. And his thought process is what I was saying before. Marketing costs a lot of money. It's very expensive. In a video game industry, it costs $32 for user acquisition. And then to retain that player is almost impossible. The average retention in a mobile game is less than 7 days. It's crazy. So you pay $32, and now you have to retain them in order to get them to monetize within the game, and you have 7 days to do so, or you've lost money. Right? It's this very high stakes betting. Right? You're basically playing the roulette wheel, and you're praying. Well, that's why we have this like whale hunting mentality in the video game industry. Let me find these guys who are going to pump $1,000, $2,000, $10,000 into this game, and I'm just going to sit there and I'm going to hit it over and over again, and I'm going to prey on these people.
That's really interesting as well, Tim, because while you're on that point, I think we've obviously seen a big shift in how game developers monetize players as well, right? Going back 10, 15 years, it was basically just a buy the game, one-time purchase. That's the only time you're extracting value from the user. Now you've got all of the downloadable content, DLC, you've got all the pre-order kind of culture, and then obviously the in-game currency and collectibles, loot boxes and things like that. So the landscape of how you actually extract value from your players is totally different right now.
Yeah. But what's crazy is it's not designed to be focused on people that only want the game, right? It's designed for whale hunting. It's designed to keep like almost like for collectors, right? Like you have this desire to own everything. And those are the people that are paying for the entire industry. Then you got to understand, out of the $32, right, 3% of all players are paying players. That's it.
Wow.
So when you think about that, half of the world at this point considers themselves gamers. 4 billion people play video games on a regular basis. There's 8 billion people in the world. And predictions say that by 2030, with the elderly passing on and the younger generation growing in, by 2030, it'll be closer to 8 billion people will be considered themselves gamers in 80% of the world.
My God.
Because at that time, at the rate of growth, we'll be at 2 billion people in the world, 8 billion of which will be playing video games. And it makes sense, right? Every baby, every toddler now walks around with an iPad. Parents literally hand them an iPad, say, hey, here you go. So going back to my story, he's telling me about this free-to-play stuff. I'm like, that doesn't make sense. You can't give it away. Your investors are going to be so mad. Like, how, like, if this tanks, like, you're screwed, buddy. This is bad. And he's like, we're doing it. I don't care. We're doing it. Tim Sweeney said, we got this. Epic is a private company. It doesn't matter. We're doing it. I said, okay, you do you. And we all know that Tim Sweeney does not care what his investors say, right? He took on Apple and was like, I'll go down with the ship. I don't care. I'll do it. If that's what it takes to get it done, I'll go down with the ship.
So was that one of your first interactions then with the idea of free to play, obviously? But then did that introduce you to the concept of Web3 initially, or was that like a gradual journey from there?
No, so I was already doing free to play, right? Because the games that we were doing were mobile games, right? Sugar Glaze, where we put an influencer into the game, that was a free to play game. So we did like the Mama channel was our first test. They had like 4 million YouTube followers, and we were able to get hundreds of thousands of downloads. And so we were able to monetize these people through ads, and we were able to get money. So that's how free to play worked. It was all because if you had enough users coming in, advertisement would cover the cost. You don't have to
just like social media, right? How we have it in all the big platforms now.
Yeah, but that's not a thing on console. You don't have. When's the last time you played a console game and an ad popped up? It's never happened. So how do you take a free to play game on console that costs you $50, $100 million, and you're going to turn around and say, "Hey, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give it away." Your investors are going to freak out. Like, how you can't do that. And so they did it. But at the same time, the European Union was doing the euro. They were consolidating because Greece was about to become bankrupt. And I had already been investing in blockchain since like 2010, 2011. I'm kind of a nerd, so I've been paying attention and watching things. And I bought Bitcoin at $100. I bought Ethereum at like $9.
So your character arc makes sense to me. You had an understanding of Bitcoin, you're an early adopter, then you had this illustrious career in gaming, and it kind of brings the two together. And that's why you're here today, is to talk about Web3 gaming and like what the opportunities are and how it addresses some of the challenges in Web2 gaming.
Yeah. So into the story, right? So European Union is coming together. Greece is coming out of bankruptcy. They're creating the euro, and I'm like, wait, if free-to-play games are on console, right? He's gonna do it. That means all games have to be free to play. And if all games have to be free to play, there could be a consolidation of video game tokens. And there could be the only thing that I know of that could do that is cryptocurrency. And this is really early. So this is like Ethereum had just like really kicked off at this point. Like it just started. And so I'm like, I think it could do it. And so we invented blockchain gaming. So that patent that you refer to, I don't go after anyone for building blockchain games, but it's my declaration that I invented blockchain games. That I was the first one to ever do it. I wrote the patent for the use of blockchain in the video game via custodial wallets. And that patent talks about like data aggregation based on decentralized versions that get around COPA compliance, that get around European data law, that get around American data laws, California privacy law, and how we can target people based on their wallet address rather than their personal information. So all that's in my patent. Then, as you alluded, I went on to get the only SEC no action letter ever given. So I worked with DLX Law and Lewis Cohen to have the first ever ERC20 token approved by the SEC. With a model that would never be attacked by the SEC. And so we built an in-game currency model that basically had no par value. It's a blockchain token that replaces in-game currencies, but it's only has value within its economy. So let's say you play Madden, or you play FIFA, or you play whatever. EA Sports could have one token, right, for all those games, an EA Sports token. And that would reduce the user acquisition costs. That would reduce the need for retention metrics. That would reduce the need for a bunch of different things. And so because of that, it really would push. So you look at Roblox, right? Roblox has a single currency. And when they introduced that, it was also the same time. In 2015, following the euro, they dropped from a two token model to a single token model, and their revenue doubled every year for 7 years. Their retention, remember I told you retention in a video game is up to 7 days. Their retention was 3 years now.
Wow.
The average retention of Roblox is 3 years. The average LTV, so the LTV standing for the value of a player, lifetime value of a player. In a regular game, it's about $3. In Roblox, it's $300.
Wow.
The user acquisition doesn't change. It's still about $32.
Yeah.
But if you're retaining them that long, and it costs $32, but you're making $300 on them, that's a really solid return.
I just want to nail down the in-game currency aspect, right? Because for many people, in-game currency has existed since as long as games have. You've had Mario, you pick up your coins. That's kind of what comes to mind for many people when they think of that. But the model has really changed, as you're alluding to. You can have currency that is interoperable between games, and I think for me that's one of the big elements of Web3 gaming that's exciting. So for you, what actually defines Web3 gaming as opposed to what we've had in the old world of gaming online and mobile? Is it just about these new currency tokens, or is there something more profound, or am I missing anything in what makes Web3 gaming special and distinct from all that?
Well, I think there's a lot of different things, and I want to be completely transparent because I don't want to hide. I think that blockchain gaming isn't where it needs to be on mainstream gaming yet. We don't have the finality, the TPS, we don't have the security layers that are strong enough yet to really handle like Call of Duty or Fortnite and the transactions and the user base that those games can produce, right? We also don't have a really solid version of a subnet or layer twos that can offer their own ZKs or their own side chains that are strong enough that don't have issues with scalability. That's a big problem. Right? If you imagine a world where Call of Duty goes down for 5 hours, it'd be like the world was ending for a lot of people. We're not there yet. And so we're at a point where I think the real value of blockchain, and as the person who claims the invention of it, of blockchain gaming, I've had a very big issue with what we've seen in Web3 gaming to date. I don't like the speculation. I don't like how NFTs have these massive barriers of entry, right? I don't understand how you can sell your NFT for $200 to your game. That's, in my opinion, not even a game. What makes your game that much better than Call of Duty? Call of Duty is $60. Why are you saying that your $200 game is better? A lot of these aren't even games. They're staking protocols with animations. They're not games. There's nothing gaming about it. And so we're getting to the point where true games are coming, like Shrapnel, Gunzilla. These games are coming out, and they're actually AAA quality titles. Now, we also have a lot of people that are looking at these interoperable tokens. And I think that's the first step into Web3. Like I always say, no one cares how the internet works. They just care that it works. And with that in mind, the blockchain should be invisible. There's no reason that we sit and talk about, like, oh, I'm on Matic, or I'm on Optimism, or I'm on ZK, or I'm doing this. Like, it doesn't matter. No one should care. Because the last time you went to a website, or us using this app right now, the StreamYard, to host this podcast, what server is it sitting on? You have no idea, nor do you care, right? But somewhere this is being stored on the internet, somewhere it's being hosted on the internet, but it doesn't matter. And it shouldn't. As long as it works and it makes life easier, that's where things matter. And so we've had the wrong view in Web3 for a long time. It's been about illicit gains, it's been about speculation, and it's been about Ponzi schemes and not about technology. We've had a lot of bad actors.
I like that a lot. And that's something that has resonated with Jack and I throughout the show. We've kind of always said, especially in blockchain and Web3 and cryptocurrencies, there's been a focus on the tech, right? And that's typically to the detriment of the user experience. And why build anything unless the user benefits in some way, or unless maybe the developer saves money or something like this in some way? And I think one of the things that I think as an avid gamer myself, we say half the people in the world define themselves as avid gamers. I think a big thing is the collectibles market, right? If I'm in World of Warcraft, I want mounts. If I've got a skin, certain game, I want to display that. It's not just about the functionality and the utility, it's also to an extent about the social flex. I've seen some like numbers being thrown around. The NFT market for specifically for gaming by 2030 will be around $500 billion. Like, I get what you mean, completely agree. There's so much BS speculation around this stuff, but there's some real utility in social kind of currency, I guess, that can be derived from this for users and gamers as well, right?
Yeah, digital rights management is definitely on the forefront of what the blockchain can provide, right? Ownership of UGC content, right? That's a big thing. I think as we get into video games further and further, we're in a world where content matters, right? The currency of a player is content. And the more content you have, the more likely you are to retain them. And you look at like games like Roblox or Netflix or what TikTok does. It's all about how much content one person can consume at any given moment. And they've proven this, right? Amazon does the same thing, right? Why does everyone use Amazon Prime? Because it has all the items you could ever possibly want. It's all about content, right? I don't know how many times I don't even use Facebook. The only reason I have it is because of Facebook Marketplace. And I don't buy anything. I just scroll. I just want to see what people are selling, right? That content is valuable. So UGC content. Now let's take that a step further. Right now, you don't own the rights to any of the content you create within Roblox, within Fortnite, within Unity. Like, you don't own it as a creator. Like, when you guys post this on the internet, you don't own it. And that's a problem in my mind, right? With digital rights management, you could own it. You could create an item that makes gaming easier, or makes making a game easier, or makes some kind of artistry or something that people can add, and you can get a revenue share off of that item for the purchase of whatever, all through the smart contract, right? We can create tokens that create interoperability, right? That make the value of playing within a publisher's community much better, right? We can look at ways to create advertisement. And so this is what ethics is doing. We're redefining how in-game advertisement works, how in-game monetization works, by handling it in a decentralized manner. People like me don't want to opt in. I don't want you to have my personal information. I want to be anonymous. And I feel like a lot of the blockchain world wants that, and a lot of millennial and Gen Z want that. They don't want you to track them. They don't want you to know. When you set up your computer, I guarantee you everyone turns off every bit of the location, all the things that you just don't want that. And so there's been a big misconception from Web2 to Web3, and it's with all these apps. Like you were saying, like social media makes money from advertisement, right? But what people don't realize is you are the product. You are what they're selling. Facebook is, and TikTok and Twitter, these are our pieces that are psychological drivers that attach you to them, that keep you there. They're designed to make you keep going as long as they can keep you there. And that way they can monetize you over and over again while you're there. So their value is not so much that you're a user, their value is how long they can keep you in the act. Video games do this by far better than anybody else.
Yeah, that's why we use the term gamification, right? And you touched on something really important there that I hadn't considered. So we've emphasized that the value of like Web3 gaming for players is around ownership of assets, ownership of skins, NFTs, whatever you want to call it. And I think most gamers understand the value of that. But there's also the privacy aspect, like I can start to do privacy preserving, identity verification, and all this kind of stuff, which is super important to players as well. But something you mentioned there is also about the benefits to developers, is because you have players who are more incentivized to create community-driven content, because you can use things like smart contracts to incentivize monetization back to the developer and also the creator in, say, a Roblox. Like, they're going to get these games that are just blowing past anything they'd originally developed, because the communities has an incentive to develop it themselves, and that gets people in really quickly, right? There's nothing better than someone developing a game who loves the game as much as any player does.
Yeah, yeah, and we have like mods, and I'm a big like old school game player, like Final
Mm.
Fantasy, and like
Mm.
with the new Final Fantasy coming out, it kind of had a resurgence of these Final Fantasy 7 mods, and
Mm.
so there's people who aren't making any money at all to build that are building
Mm.
mods that you could download onto your computer, and you can have a full rendering of Final Fantasy 7 from 1999 that looks like a modern day title. These people are making they're just doing it because they love it. And they could be making money from that. They could be selling this. They could be creating a revenue share model. They could, like, Square Enix is really big on Web3. They're doing a lot of stuff on Web3. They could make Guild universal from all games, revitalize every single Final Fantasy to ever exist, right? They could
Yeah.
automatically start monetizing them all.
This kind of comes back to your relationship with like the influencer and understanding influencers and their relationship with social media. Like they have these weird kind of symbiotic relationships, but there's no the say the Instagrams or the Facebooks of the world don't have to give them monetization, even though they're bringing in so much fan base to watch their content. It's a similar kind of paradigm with these people that are creating maps, creating mods for games that are bringing in the user base, but they're not necessarily being incentivized in a transparent kind of defined way by the game, but they should, right?
Yeah, it should be a part of it. The games, like I said, going back to the Facebook analogy, Facebook and TikTok and all these guys, they're trying to get you to stay there as long as they
Mm.
can. Think of the last time you turned on a video game. I guarantee you played it for more than 30 minutes. You played it more than an hour, right? On average,
Mm.
the average game time of a console game is 3 to 5 hours. That's
God,
great.
that's nothing. I've done
Yeah.
like 5 times that, I think, on an average.
But the average is 3 to 5. Now,
Yeah.
Mm.
I also look at blockchain and I look at like what it does from the privacy standpoint and what can we actually really do. So again, going back, why do they want you to stay in Facebook and TikTok? It's because they want to monetize you as many times as possible through ads. And so they're selling your information into these data pools. We've lost a thing called IDFA. IDFA is identifier for advertisement, right? And Apple is it's what made Apple a $1 trillion company. Make no mistake, Apple does not make any money selling you this. They make $0 selling you this. They make $0 selling you a MacBook. That's not what they're trying to do. Apple is a credit card processing and video game third-party publisher. That is their business. 30% of all the revenue that is sold through the App Store goes to Apple. All 30%.
Yeah, exactly. It goes back to the exact same problem you're describing with these games and how they monetize you, and also with the social media platforms. They're trying to create walled gardens that capture you, that keep you in there, that are very sticky and hard to move in and out of. And Apple is another example of that. And very arguable how much is it worth it for a lot of people. You've seen people starting to make decisions adversely, and actually maybe I don't need my app on Apple anymore, especially with the rise of things like Steam. I think is really interesting, right? Because that is also in a way democratized how games are sold, because you all have this whole idea of pre-ordering more openly and transparently and launching games on there. I'm also really interested in I think we've hinted at this idea of play to earn, right? I think that's part of what is in the Web3 gaming space. This idea of the more you play, the more activity you do, the better you are at a game. You might earn more money for it. I've even seen examples of like leaderboards, and if you're at the top of a leaderboard, you earn money and micropayments from other people, which I think is really cool. What do you think about the flip side of that as well? And how important do you think it is if we don't want to have this social kind of advertising world where you're monetized for being in a platform? What do you think about the idea of almost like streaming payments while you play? So paying per second or per region of the map you unlock. Do you think there's a role for that in Web3 as well?
I'll be honest with you, no. And I also don't think play to earn's going to stick around. I think that's more on the speculation side, and I think that's more on valuing the economy in itself, right? Let me ask you this. If you were to go outside and go to a park, and I said, all right, I'm going to turn on the timer, and for every second you're out in this park, you have to pay me X amount of dollars, right? You probably would no longer go to the park. Right? Even if your kid really wanted to go, you're probably not going to go. There's a reason, like when you go to Disneyland or to Six Flags, there's a one-time fee, stay as long as you want, then you can leave. That's how games work. That's how everything in life works. You would literally, instead of having fun, you'd be doing this. You'd be watching the clock the entire time. Get out of there. It's costing you money. Your mind would be there. Why do you think when you walk into an arcade and you don't use real money anymore. In the 80s, you did. Why did it die? Because we started getting in-house consoles, right? That became more prevalent. Why is it that it has switched? So when you walk into an arcade, they make you take your $20 and convert it into Dave & Buster's, into their token, into whatever. Do you know why they do that? It's a psychological thing. You are less likely to spend the cash in your pocket than you are to spend the money that you've transferred into the card.
Oh, yeah.
You've disconnected that this is real money. This is no longer a thing. You've now connected to the fact that you have all this funny money and you want to spend it.
Yeah, and I think that's why I brought up play to earn, is that was the craze maybe 1, 2, 3 years ago, and everyone's saying this is the big future, and it's kind of died a death. If you look at something like Axie Infinity, they don't have a huge number of daily users, and they were one of the biggest proponents of that model, and it seems as a trend that's really tailed off. So I'm glad you also have the contrarian, or maybe not contrarian anymore, view that is not necessarily where the value proposition is for Web3 gaming. It's probably more in digital rights management, as you said.
It's in a lot of things, right? It's not just digital rights, right? So again, going back to the ad stuff, let me talk about what ethics does. So ethics in America, I know you guys aren't in the United States, but in America, everyone has a social security number. I'm not sure if there's something similar in the UK. I'm sure there's some kind of way they track you. But essentially, your social security number is a custodial wallet. That's what it is. So when you're born, you're assigned a social security number. Your birth certificate is attached to it. When you go to school, your parents write down your social security number. It's attached to you. So now they're collecting all this information about you, right? It's all going back, because there's 365 million people in America. How many of them are named Tim? It's a lot, right? There's no way they could track me by that. They can't do it. And so when I get a driver's license, when I get a credit card, when I do all these things, it's all associated to my social security number. That is the tracking identifier that the government uses to identify who I am. The same thing happens in blockchain. We all have a unique wallet address. Every single one of us. No matter what chain it's on, it doesn't matter. You have a unique wallet address that is a 100% you. It's all about who you are, what you're doing. And so ethics, what we're doing is we're taking that wallet address and we're looking at the games you're playing. We're looking at when you monetize in those games. And if you do opt in, great. We're looking at what things you're doing on the internet. Now, let's say Jack, he's willing to opt in because he wants to earn higher rewards, but Alec, you don't. You're like me and you say, I don't want to do this. Then we say, okay, Jack is doing all these things. This is what we know about Jack. He likes this stuff. He constantly is looking at bicycles on Instagram. We can see that. He's doing this, he's doing that.
It's all Assassin's Creed for me.
Okay, he's playing a lot of Ubisoft stuff, and he's going down that route. And then we look at Alec, and we compare Alec's wallet to Jack's wallet. Now, Alec, we don't know his name. We don't know his personal information. We have his IP address. That's not personal. So we know about where you're located. We know what games you've been playing. We know when you've monetized in those games. So now Alec and Jack are both playing Assassin's Creed. They both come from a very similar IP address. They both have very consistent things that they're doing within the video games that they play and that we can track. And they have very consistent transactions on chain that are completely public. We say these people are an 80% match, and we put them in the same data lake. So we're recreating that IDFA. We're recreating identifier for advertisement in a decentralized manner. And so what we're saying is we're taking the in-game consumption of a player and we're comparing it to known players with similar likenesses. And then we're putting them in the data lake. So a data lake is what an advertiser uses to advertise. So let's say like Coca-Cola comes to us and says, Tim, we want to advertise to men from the UK between the ages of 20 and 40 that love Assassin's Creed. Okay. Now, Jack, because he opted in, will probably get a higher return. Now, how the system works, and think of like Brave Browser was the first version of this. They were saying you should get paid for the data that you consume on the internet. That data, you should not only be the user that we sell to Facebook. You should have a revenue share. It's your data, you consumed it. You should get paid for that. I think the same for video games. I think the same for the whole internet. And so Jack opted in, Alec didn't. So Jack is going to get maybe 8 cents per thousand, and Alec's going to get 4 cents per thousand, so half the value. So what happens is Coca-Cola comes to us and say, we have $100,000 to advertise to this network. Great. Over the next 2 weeks. Cool. They give us 100 grand. We put that and mint it into ethics tokens. Ethics tokens are then dropped into your wallets for the advertisements you see, for the pieces that you look at, for the games that you play, however the developer wants to give it to you. Those tokens are dropped into your wallet like a leaky faucet, almost like an airdrop, right? You are getting paid for the advertisements you watch. Now, ethics act as a medium of exchange token. And what that means is it's very much built to be similar to how oil is for the US dollar. The reason the US dollar has been the bespoke currency of the world is because if you buy oil, you buy it with US dollars. No other currency in the world can buy oil. I don't know why, but that's just how it is. So oil, you buy with US dollars. I'm the UK. I had to hold US dollars in my treasury to buy oil. I then take this oil that I bought and I turn around and I sell it to the people of the UK and they're paying me in British pounds, right?
Yeah.
Now that's the conversion. So think of it very much the same way. So ethics tokens are minted when an advertiser comes to the network. The money is held in escrow, right? Then we turn around and we drop those tokens to you. So now we have the lockup value of the advertiser. You have the money sitting in your custodial wallet. And now we have a backend DEX, which is a decentralized exchange that you don't ever see. But let's say you want to go play an EA game, right? We will swap our tokens for EA's game, $1 match to your token. Or if it's a token that's already a cryptocurrency, you could just swap it directly. And now if you want to move the ethics token to your own non-custodial wallet, you could do that. We'll give you a temporary wallet address and we'll send it out. So the idea around ethics is that you should own your own data, that you should have a medium of exchange token, that developers, whether they're ready for Web3 or not, can have access to Web3 metrics. So NFTs, we got to understand there's a distinction here. Digital rights and NFTs are not considered cryptocurrencies by the government and by publishers. They could put NFTs in their games today. Epic Games could have NFTs across the entire thing. That does not hurt them. They can have that. But cryptocurrencies, they can't really have them on their balance sheet. Especially if they're publicly traded. It's a big deal. So instead, we do is we have our own sponsor bank. So we offer on-ramps. We could sell cryptocurrencies. We could sell NFTs, credit cards, debit cards, Apple Pay, etc. But we also then can turn around and say, hey, EA, we, just like you sell your tokens, or gift cards at Best Buy, we want to do the same. We want to buy them at wholesale. So we'll buy your tokens 80 cents on the dollar, and then we'll give these users these ethics tokens, and then they can convert them into yours. So you don't ever have to touch crypto. We almost act like a market maker, right? So let's say EA gives us $1 million worth of their tokens to give out. We give them out, whether that's through a gift card or a number, or we have access directly into their wallet. And I'll get a little bit further to that in a second, but we swap your token. So what happens is ethics token burns, the money stays in the escrow. So you spent $1, we burn $1 worth of the ethics tokens that you sent. Then EA sends us an invoice for the $1 that you spent. We pay them that $1 through our banking partner. They never touch the crypto at all. They get cash. And the whole system becomes a full-fledged market-making piece.
Interesting. Tim, is it fair to say this is somewhere, please shoot me down, I'm just trying to get a piece of this because it sounds really interesting. Are you somewhere between, let's say, a kind of almost an FX provider between different tokens that are in the gaming world, the Web3 gaming world, and also like the way a stable coin, I'm thinking, acts as an easy way to on-ramp and off-board between different currencies, but you're doing that for the gaming space. Is that a fair description?
Somewhat. We're not a stable token. Ethics is not stable. So the lockup, you got to understand where a cryptocurrency gets its value. A lot of people, there's two ways that cryptocurrency gets value. Off of psychology of speculation, right? So people thinking it's going to go up. That's been the whole thing with XRP. There's been a lot of people that'll say it's going up, and that's kept that price where it's at, right? Whether they have actual fundamentals or not, or real true utility, that's arguable. But the second thing is, what is the total lockup? The lockup of any token, and you can go look on anywhere in the world, the lockup usually is equivalent to about 4x. So if you have $100 locked up, your token's market cap is about $400. It's always about 4x. So if you have, you can take Ethereum, and I think the last time I checked Ethereum, it was like 65 billion lockup with a 265 billion market cap. And you look at Polygon, 2 billion lockup, 8 billion market cap, right? It's always roughly about a 3 to 4x is what that lockup is. So the more we have locked up in the escrow, the higher the value of the ethics tokens, which gives you, the holder of the token, whether you know they're being held or not, more value for the data that you're consuming.
That's really interesting because it's going way beyond what you have typically with the medium of exchange token, where you're actually reflecting how much value is being provided, right, in terms of the data and the kind of replacement for advertising side. I think that's really interesting. I want to get on to kind of what is in the future then. So let's take where you are today with ethics. What are you most excited about tackling in the future? Because I've seen, obviously, with the recent news with Disney putting 1.3 billion into Epic Games, creator of Fortnite, and they're looking at this whole idea around interoperability for gaming and Web3 gaming, and that being a big challenge. Is that something that you're very passionate about helping to tackle, or are there other challenges on the horizon for you with ethics?
Yeah, no. So like the first step, when I do things in iteration. So the first step is consolidating Web3, giving everyone the on ramps that they need to be able to sell their tokens in the games that they're playing now. There's no reason to have to go to an exchange, to a wallet, back to the game to sign. You're losing $10 before you even play the game. That's a problem. So we have that now. The second step is to recreate IDFA, right? Unity went from a $55 billion company to a $10 billion company in less than a year because they lost Unity ads. It completely devastated the entire, like, people don't realize mobile games are 200 billion up to $300 billion total gaming economy. 2/3 of all video games are monetized through mobile. 65% of mobile advertisement or mobile games monetization comes through mobile advertisement. So Unity ads, IDFA, that's a massive TAM that's now been destroyed. We need to fix that. So IDFA in a decentralized manner, that's step 2. Step 3 is exactly what you were just talking about with Epic. We are going to take that SEC no action letter that I got, my patent on custodial wallets, and we're going to start building out economies of scales for all these publishers. So you play Assassin's Creed, I play Assassin's Creed. It'd be great if I was going from one Assassin's Creed to the next without having to buy more tokens. I could just move my items and tokens. Or if there was a secondary market where I could sell the things that I'm not using, right? Instead of selling them in game, I could sell them to someone else, get tokens to put over in game A or B, right? The beauty of Assassin's Creed is you probably play one or two over and over again.
Yeah.
Like for me, I constantly go back, and it's not even that old, but I play the Greek one all the time.
So good.
But I'm a huge Greek mythology fan, right? So I like to go back and play it over and over again. And I really like how they did the pre-cult to the cults of the past. Assassin's Creed. It's interesting.
Odyssey is my favorite too. I love that.
Odyssey. But it'd be great because they had the new witch one coming out, right? Salem Witch Trials. I would love to be able to sell my stuff in Odyssey on the secondary market. Now, because we have smart contracts, Ubisoft gets a cut of that secondary sale, and we can turn around and move our stuff into the next game. And they're doubling up. They're not having to pay to re-engage me. It's a solid win for them. So what we're looking to do, and one of the things I didn't touch on, is I also helped create the first layer 2s. I helped create the first ZKs, all based on video games, right? So James Kunani, the founder of Polygon, actually worked for me when I created the first blockchain gaming company. And he created Polygon because I got mad that Ethereum gas fees were 99 cents at the time. And if you think about it, like right now, I think the average gas fee on Ethereum is about 99 cents. But if you were to remove Avalanche and Polygon and all these other chains, all these other layer 2s, if you remove them, what would the gas fee on Ethereum be because of the network clogging? It'd be immense, right? But even those, like Polygon and Avalanche, they're not quite at the point where they need to be. That's why we're seeing things like subnets being introduced. That's why we're seeing them cloning chains. Polygon Edge, right? Like they're doing that because they understand that they are on a limited path. They only have so much longer they can run. And so instead of continuing to run on Polygon's mainnet, they're like, we'll just clone it for you. That's what we did with Ethereum. We forked it, we cloned it, we made it scalable. We'll just give you this until you run out of bandwidth. Well, that doesn't work for video games. So we're looking at how we can create what I call a family tree. And that's where this whole scalable economies work. If I can create a family tree where we have a consensus layer, the security layer on the first layer, and we have a second layer where it's me on the mainnet layer where I'm handling all the transactions and data, I'm handling the credit card processing, and then we have a third layer that is actually the branch itself that's handling all of what's going on within the publisher's economy that they've set up. Now we can really start to look at security, privacy, consolidations, finality, like those things start to actually get solved. And you look at like layer ones like out there like Sui, right? Sui has 400,000 TPS, but there's not a layer 2 on it. It's only built for dApps. Well, 400,000 TPS is what it would take to run Call of Duty. So if we scale that and we pivot it to a privacy sector and we look at ZKs, how they can be introduced to Sui, we look at how a layer 2 could be introduced to Sui, we look at how a layer 3 could be introduced to Sui, then now we're talking about a truly operable system that can compete with servers, that can compete with AWS.
They're very exciting, right? These layers that provide interoperability between different platforms, but also preserve privacy. That's so fundamental going forward. I'm really excited for that. So we're coming to the end of the show, and this has been great. I'm so glad we got to talk about Web3 gaming finally. One of the questions I'd like to ask just before Jack jumps in with two questions that he loves to ask is, what's your take on the Vision Pro? I see it everywhere right now. Do you think it's going to affect the gaming space in a big way?
Not yet. I think we're close to VR, and I have some cool AR stuff, but everything in the world revolves around the mom test. And what the mom test is, imagine your mom doing something, right? Imagine you sit down next to your mom and say, Mom, put on this VR headset. If your mom tells you no, it does not pass the mom test. And everything that's ever been successful ever has to pass the mom test. Why does Roblox pass the mom test? Because they don't know what game you're playing. But it looks childish enough, even though it's not. There's definitely some bad stuff on Roblox. It looks childish enough that they're willing to buy you a gift card because they can't be wrong. It passes the mom test, right? They can give you a $10 gift card and you can play any game you want. Now, if you can't imagine your mom wearing a Google headset or an Apple headset, it doesn't pass the mom test. Now, we're getting to the point where our generation is becoming moms, these 30-year-olds, these 40-year-olds. Within the next 5 to 10 years, absolutely going to be a thing. Because you will be able to picture moms wearing those headsets. But until you can imagine your mom doing it, it doesn't pass the mom test.
That's a really interesting way of thinking about it because, there's obviously lots of talk about it at the minute and whether this is the kind of drinking milk on your iPhone the age of Apple's Vision Pro headset. And I think you're right. That's exactly where we are. And that didn't become really consumer-wide accepted for a long time. Wouldn't have passed the mom test for a little bit further. So, Tim, we're coming to the end now. Every episode, we like to ask two very specific questions because we like to see the different answers people give and also how they change over time. So if you're ready, I'm going to fire the first one at you now. In one sentence, what is Web3 to you?
Web3 is the aggregation and consolidation of payments, transaction, and ownership on the internet.
Nice. That was really good and very concise because we don't always get that. So I really think that's powerful. Awesome. And then the second question, and normally when I ask this question, I say, if you could choose anybody around on the planet today or from any time throughout history, I'm going to also throw in anyone from an Assassin's Creed game as well. If you want to add Altair in there, go for it. I guess we've mentioned him so much, but if you could choose anyone ever to sit down and discuss Web3 with, who would that be and why?
That's a good question. I'm gonna go way off track, and I'm gonna say like someone like Nikola Tesla. And the reason I say that is because I think he was a visionary of his time. I think he understood really what ownership should be, right? He wanted to give away electricity. He didn't think that one company should have the right to conserve the energy and then sell it to others. And I look at the Web3 very much like that, right? It's the ownership layer of the internet, what you truly are, who you are, your perspectives. And I think he would have a really refined thought process. I kind of feel like a lot of us who have been around for a long time are like a version, like we're all fractional versions of Nikola Tesla trying to give the internet back. And we're getting fought by banks, we're getting fought by Facebook, we're getting fought by all these traditional Web2s who don't want you to have it. They don't want you to get away from them because they're all middlemen, right? Middlemen make their money in the middle. If you cut out the middle, who's really making the money? Well, it's between you and the actual servicers. And so I think Nikola Tesla would be an amazing person to really look at the fundamentals of what we're doing and why we're doing it and why that path means so much to the greater world. And he failed at getting electricity for free. He tried very hard and they shut him down. But now there's a lot more of us fighting to give back what true ownership is to people.
I like that. That's a really powerful answer. Yeah, we emphasize the importance of the peer-to-peer economy and real value added and not just facilitating exchange. But that's powerful. Thanks, Tim. This has been a really great episode. I've been so excited to have an episode on Web3 gaming from an actual expert in the space. So thank you for coming on. And thank you to those listening wherever you may be. And join us next time as we untangle a little more of Web3. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Untangling Web3.
Don't forget to send us your thoughts, questions, and comments on social media. And be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast provider to catch the next episode. See you next time to untangle a little bit more of Web3.
The views we express here are our own and do not reflect the views of our employers.